Afraid someone is scouting my house for robbery. I frequent the sub for my before bed reading almost nightly, and a lot of you guys have some solid advice a lot of the time. I thought I would post a strange encounter my partner and I had today to see if anyone know what the hell could be happening. We've lived in our townhouse in Colorado for just about 2 years and just renewed our third lease. We're comfortable here. We know our neighbors, and we know the area extremely well, and are actively involved in the community when we can be. Me and my partner, we'll call him C, both work in the gig and service industries, so our work hours are relatively irregular. Almost always, though, someone is home during the day. Only on weekend nights are we both away simultaneously for some sort of gig. Today is a Wednesday, and I was at work from about 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. After work, I came home and my partner had a rough day, so we're just relaxing and organizing some stuff, spring cleaning vibes. He then tells me about what happened while he was home today. Around noon, suddenly a knock came from the front door, and our 2 dogs began barking as they usually do. But before my partner could answer the door, a man started peeking through our front window trying to see inside of the house. He tried to calm the dogs and cracked the door to answer. Outside, standing in all black tactical gear, is what we assumed to be a police officer. C says his badge said something with the word fugitive in it, but he's having a tough time remembering. The man stated he was looking for a woman and that he had a warrant for her arrest. He had a rolled up paper with this lady's information and photo on it and had our address on the paper. The dogs are still going wild at this point, and C tells the guy that she doesn't live here and that we've lived here for 2 years. The guy just tells C that he has a warrant and the police are on their way. C repeats that we are the only ones here and that one of our dogs is aggressive. At this point, C is just worried he's going to force entry and end up killing my dog, because she hates males because of a past abusive relationship. The man again states the police are coming and that he has a warrant for this woman's arrest. Then he just leaves. Okay. Well, the police still haven't showed up for anything. We spoke to our landlord and she said maybe it was a bounty hunter type thing. Either way, we've lived here for 2 years and never experienced anything like this. It made me uncomfortable when he told me about it because now I'm just worried someone is casing our house for a robbery or something. I was 7 years old and my aunt and uncle were having a party for my cousin. The whole family was there, plus many friends and a few neighbors. Growing up, all my cousins and I were very close. They were like the brothers and sisters I never had. So needless to say, when we were together, we were inseparable. The neighborhood they lived in was pretty big, old colonial houses up and down the streets. It was a beautiful place. There was only one other kid that lived nearby, a girl named Krista. She was 8. I'd met her on several occasions, but I was always with my cousins when we'd walk to her house to play. Her house looked like an antique store with dozens of porcelain dolls and big French furniture throughout the house. Krista was only a child like me, but she had almost every toy imaginable, so I definitely didn't mind going to her house. It felt like I was in a toy store. Plus, we had always seemed to get along. So on the day of the party, we were all outside, running around having a blast, or at least I thought we all were. At some point, Krista asked Georgia, my cousin's friend from school, and I to walk down to her house. I immediately agreed. Like I said, I always enjoyed going to her house. So we get to Krista's house, her mom and Graham were there. We say hi and proceed up the steps. Once upstairs, she started talking to Georgia and I about how he had something really cool to show us. Of course, we were interested about what it was. She opened the door that I assumed was a closet, but it was actually a little bonus room off of her room, just filled with stuff. And as a little kid, I was curious. So we walk into the little room. It was bigger than a closet, and we started looking around, waiting for her to show us what was so important. All of a sudden, Krista exits the room, shuts the door, and locks it. I thought she was just pulling a prank on us at first, but then she started to talk. Krista started telling us that we were mean, taking up all of Cousin's time. She continued saying that she's her best friend and that she will not be replaced. Georgia and I just looked at each other in complete shock. We were frightened. She started telling us that she was going to keep us locked up forever, We had no idea what we were going to do or how we were going to talk this girl into letting us out. I don't remember exactly what we said, but we tried to talk her into letting us out. Now at this time I wasn't sure how long we'd been at her house, but thank goodness we had family that paid attention. Because the next thing we hear is my two cousins Liza and her sister Nicole. As soon as we heard their voices, we started yelling. They heard us and they asked what the heck we were doing in there. Of course, Krista starts telling them that we were playing a game and she was just joking with us, but we knew better. After my cousins demanded her to let us out, we immediately left Krista's house and made our way back to the party. We told my cousin what happened and she couldn't believe it. This girl locked me and Georgia in a room because she was jealous. Needless to say, neither of my two cousins hung out with her after that, and they moved about a year later. Sometimes I often wonder whatever happened to her and if her creepy, jealous actions ever escalated into something bigger. This happened to me when I was 7 or 8 years old. My family lived in an apartment in a large settlement. My dad, mom, brother, and me. Brother was about 20 years old. We had a big apartment, 2 bathrooms, a living room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a storage room, and a hallway where the storage room was. So in the hallway was the entrance to the apartment, and the hallway connected 2 bedrooms, living room, and everything else. My dad was a great father to me when I was young. He would always play with me, make me laugh all the time. And my brother was a good protective brother, and he always took care of me. Me and my brother slept in 1 bedroom, my dad and mom in another. We usually slept with closed doors at night when we went to sleep. At night, settlement would be quiet, you could hear crickets, and it would be nice. Sometimes you would hear some young people passing by and talking and stuff like that. So this is what happened to me that I cannot comprehend to this day, and I don't know what was that night that visited me. I woke up in the middle of the night. The doors of our bedroom were fully opened. Everybody was sleeping, and the settlement was quiet. And I was fully awake and aware of everything. And I got the feeling that something was wrong, and my mind tells me something's watching you, and you're not safe. I got tingles on my body, and my hair rose up. My heart started pounding like crazy, and I can't scream. I got up from bed, my brother was sleeping across from me, and then I look in the hallway and see my dad in a blue collar watching me and not saying anything. And I watched this thing what it felt like as an eternity, but I think in reality only a few seconds, and it just scares me. And it just stares at me and laughs like my father. Looks like my father, and I'm completely frozen, trying to do something. I don't know what, but something before it grabs me. And then I ran, jumped on my brother, and screamed, "Somebody's in the hallway, brother." My brother stands up, gets his gun, turns the light on, and nobody is there. My parents wake up, and they search the apartment. Nothing. No forced entry on any doors, nothing. They believe me, and my mother starts praying that whatever's in the house, in Jesus' name, leaves. Everybody believed me. My dad told me, "I believe you, son. I just saw some weird stuff in war when we were in the forest." And he told me, if that thing calls you, just scream or run if you're alone. To this day, I don't know what I encountered. This happened back in 2006. I was living in South Florida and I didn't have a car at the time. I used to take the bus and train all the time. One evening I was waiting for the train, and the train was behind schedule by 2 hours. I was waiting in the platform since it was a Saturday and it was the last train of the night. There were only a couple of people waiting. As I wait seated on a bench, I see this guy coming towards me. He was almost running, and he stops to catch his breath and asks me if the train is coming. I told him the train was delayed. He started looking everywhere, and he told me that he needed to leave now that someone were after him. He was sweating and nervous. I didn't understand at first, but then he sat and tells me that he needs to take the train now. The station has a parking lot on the opposite side of the railway. After 10 minutes, I hear the guy saying, "They found me." He started shacking and crying, and I didn't know what to do. I just remember that I look around, see a black Cadillac Escalade parked across the platform. One guy came out of the SUV and started giving signal to come to their side. The guy crossed the railways and went to talk to the guy. They were talking for some time. At some point, the guy seems like he wanted to leave, and the guy from the SUV held his hand and pushed towards him and gave him a hug, and as soon as he hugs him, he pushed really hard to the backseat of the SUV. He also gets on too, and they all went away. He was just surreal, and it looked like a narco movie. I still have the face of the guy in my mind. So this happened almost 10 years ago, but still gives me the creeps whenever I think about it. I was finishing college, living back with my parents in our sleepy little town, and had rekindled an old friendship from high school to pass my days. Madison was a chill girl, and I got along pretty well with her boyfriend and brothers, so I ended up spending a fair amount of time over at her place. Madison's mom was a nurse who enjoyed training for marathons, so if she wasn't at work, she was usually out running. Her dad, on the other hand, was off on disability and home every day except for delivering paper around the neighborhood at about 4 a.m. Through passing conversation with Madison, I learned how he had been a professor before going off work, but I didn't feel it was my place to inquire further than that. He was never anything but pleasant to me during our interactions, but I was always struck with the notion that he seemed very distracted by something, as if there was always another conversation happening that he needed to return to. My parents are the type who always have questions about my friends, even if I was a 22-year-old college student, so I filled them in on what I knew and where I had been spending my afternoons. My mom asked me if I knew what her dad was off on disability for. I told her I did not, at which point my dad piped up and said he believes he deals with some mental illness. He then gently explained that he had responded to a 911 call with the volunteer fire department to go retrieve Madison's father out of their garage after a failed suicide attempt. My heart went out to everyone involved, and my questions surrounding her dad were satisfied. I continued hanging around Madison and her family for the rest of the summer, never having any issues besides a hangover the next day. One night we were all over at Madison's house celebrating someone's birthday, I think. Everyone was congregating in the kitchen, sharing snacks, drinking wine, dancing. Even Madison's parents were down and having a good time with us. Her dad came over to me calmly with his drink and asked if he could speak with me in the other room just off of the kitchen. I agreed and followed him, thinking he was probably going to ask me to move my car. When we got into the other room, I could see that concerned look on his face and became a little worried, hoping I hadn't done something wrong. "Amanda, I don't mean to scare you, but my paper route is through your neighborhood and I saw something the other night. While I was heading down your street, I noticed a man coming towards me on the other side of the road. I don't usually see anybody else out that early, so I was a little surprised. But as he got closer, I noticed he had no feet. He made eye contact with me as he said the last part, and I could tell he was being serious. I had no idea what to do, and I just froze, and he just floated on past. He said with a dramatic arm wave. He then began to shake his head as if saying no. Anyways, I think it's a reaper and thought you should know. He made eye contact again, but smiled sweetly. I picked my jaw up off the floor and managed to thank him for letting me know. He nodded dutifully and went back into the other room, rejoining the party. I told Madison about it later on in the evening, just so she would know what was going on with her dad. She seemed embarrassed but not surprised by the information and told me to ignore her dad because he was crazy. Her dad carried on as usual around me after that and never brought it up to me again. After I finished college and moved out, Madison and I sort of lost touch. I really don't think about it that often. I do, however, always check to make sure people have feet when I'm out walking in the early morning hours.